midlife crisis is a point in someone's life when they become nostalgic and often feel unfulfilled with where they are. As a coping mechanism, these middle-aged people often alter their mindsets or actions to compensate for this roadblock in their life.
In attempts to find the truth behind the social idea of the midlife crisis, we interviewed several adults who were capable of providing input on the subject. We asked the interviewees several questions, which helped us come to a conclusion on whether or not a midlife crisis is a social construct.
I define a midlife crisis as a time in a man or woman's or person's life where they are not sure where they are and where they're going.
I don't know, I think it's probably that point in your life where you realize that you're not going to live forever and you start worrying about the things that you haven't done yet and you start doing things maybe a little bit differently.
I think it's a period of time in the middle of your life, 40s to 60s is what we say in psychology, where you reassess your goals and values and your work, and you decide if you're happy with the way things are going.
There's panic, there's all kinds of symptoms depending on the person. Everybody reacts differently, but I think some people get panicked about things, some people get upset, maybe worry about things.
I don't know, I think some people really get whacked out by it and make drastic changes to their life. The classic example would probably be buying the crazy red sports car.
I would say what I would think is kind of an unhappiness or maybe a little bit of depression with your life, maybe some uneasiness, maybe a desire to all of a sudden make some changes that might be a little out of character from the person that you knew.
So I guess with my definition, they're a reality. The fact that somebody wants to call it midlife, I think, is an opinion. Crisis is a crisis.
I think they're a reality. I think they're a reality. I think the connotation of them is not always good, and they are not necessarily always bad, but I think they're a reality.
I think it's a reality for some people. I don't think everyone goes through midlife crisis, but I think a lot of people do.
I've seen it in both. I think men and women can be affected equally by this.
I think both of them are equally likely to be affected for different reasons.
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I would think men, but that's just because you hear more about men having a midlife crisis than women.
Again, I think people hit crisis throughout life. I think people get labeled with it probably in their 40s or 50s maybe.
I would say somewhere from 40 to 50, and I think it earlier for men, later for women.
Well, it would depend what's going on in your life, but I would say average would be like early 40s to early 50s.
That's a good question. So I'm now 54, so I don't think I hit my midlife crisis yet. So the midlife part, I don't think I'm going to live to 108. So I don't know. I think it's probably anywhere from 40 is the first big milestone when you realize you're getting older to 50. No, not always. I think there's a few people out there that kind of give it the bad name, that kind of get attached that label to it, probably rightfully so, but I don't think it applies to everybody.
Sometimes, but not always.
I don't think it should, because it shouldn't always be a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes people get jobs that are more of a calling, and they feel like they can help people. It's not always about just buying a sports car and just trying to feel young.
I think if you handle crisis well, they're all learning opportunities. And so when you go through a crisis and you experience something that upsets you or causes pain in your life, if you can learn from it and take it forward and react to it in a positive way, I think that's a positive outcome. And that's how we grow and that's how we learn, and I think that's the positive aspect of it.
I think the positive aspects is that people rethink who they are, what they're doing with their lives, and it can move in a more positive direction.
The positive aspects would be, maybe you do want to change your job and you have been kind of in a rut and you want to do something different. Maybe you want to change some of your priorities or some of your, some of your hobbies. Maybe you want to start doing some things that you haven't been doing, or taking some more personal time, or, whatever. And maybe, a lot of times in the midlife crisis, you might have more time because it might be a time when there's a transition and your children are leaving the home. So I think it can be good.
Sometimes a midlife crisis can destroy the other people around them. Sometimes it creates change that makes people move on.
I don't think there are really any negatives for me personally, but I've seen other men do stupid things and walk away from families and stuff like that and start over with life number 2. So
I think it all depends on how you deal with a midlife crisis. If you deal with it in a way that you just absolutely have to prove you're young, and reject things in life, like some people get divorced, things like that, then or just go out and buy frivolous things. I think you have to be careful with that. I don't know the answer to this entirely because I'm not that old yet. I'm only 39. I would think that people would probably be more calm and relaxed and just happy about life in general because they know it's limited and they know they need to enjoy everything.
So I think if you learn from it, it can change positively. If you don't learn from it, and I think it happens to some people, maybe you go into a negative spiral and things start to unravel and your life feels out of control. And, that happens again. I've seen people at all ages go through things like that, but I think that could be a negative impact of it.
It depends on whether it's positive or negative. If it's positive, then it's a good thing. Again, negative would mean that other people are affected or it may not end so well. I think it just depends on the direction.
I don't know. I think you probably realize that every year you have after you kind of come to this realization that you put a lot more value in it, so you tend not to waste as much time. You make everything count a little bit more. You tend not to waste as much, I guess.
Well, I would think once you got through the midlife crisis, your life would be hopefully calmer, a little more even. If the midlife crisis caused you to make some good changes, then I would think you might be happier and more fulfilled. And hopefully you can take a crisis, and if you know you're in it, say, how can I make it into a positive thing versus having it kind of take you down and have a negative spiraling effect. And especially when you're in a crisis, you can say, how can I make this positive and come out of it better? Then that's a really positive effect.
I don't know that you can put a number on it. People handle crisis many different ways, and I think for one person it's something that they can experience for maybe minutes or even for hours, and other people it could be weeks, months, or even years. So
I think it probably varies dramatically from person to person, but I don't know, it's probably a 5-year period maybe.
Yeah, I would guess a year or two.
Again, I don't know the answer to that. I think it probably varies by person. Probably it could be up to just a year or to several years. It probably, again, just depends on the individual.
yeah, maybe the people have them because they start to worry that life is more than halfway over, and it's not necessarily true, but mathematically 50 years, depending on when your parents died, maybe it's younger or older. You think, oh, I'm more than halfway, what am I going to do from here? And it can cause some stress. It makes you wonder. So, maybe there's something more to it than I thought initially.
I think for a whole host of reasons. I think children leaving home, or people questioning whether they're doing what they're passionate about, all kinds of things, just change and getting older.
It's funny, I don't know if I would call it a crisis, but there's definitely a point when I think all of us realize we aren't going to live forever, and we start doing things a little differently. I think a crisis would only apply to some people who really get whacked out and do stupid things and wreak havoc in their lives and stuff. So I think it's a myth that everyone hits it.
Well, I think it can be if in your life there's some major change that you're not in control of. It could be, your role changes, your parents get very sick, and all of a sudden that role changes and puts a lot of stress on you. It could be that things are going on, your children are leaving, and now you feel like you don't have as, maybe what gave you value and what made you feel important is no longer there. It could be that you're feeling old, or maybe you have your first illness, and all of a sudden you realize that you're not in perfect health. That can be a crisis, and there's a lot of different things can cause them.
Because I think we all just reassess the fact that life is short. You're not going to live forever. Are you happy doing what you are doing currently? Because if not, you don't get to retake it. You don't get to go back and redo your life. So it has to be something that you're going to be happy with living with. And sometimes money isn't everything.
From what we found through these interviews, midlife crises are very much a reality and a presence among adults in our society. While it may not affect every adult, there is evidence of its existence through the experiences of everyone. Whether male or female, 40 or 60, a midlife crisis can hit anyone as they make their way through adulthood.